Hey everyone, it's Ben Cecchini back with another episode of the Give and Grow podcast. Our SEL series, social emotional learning series, is for those parents, teachers, and just adults that are looking to raise healthy, loving human beings. And today I'm super excited to introduce Maggie Shaver-Dock. Maggie is an individual couples family counselor. She's been a clinician working with families for the past 30 years, also certified as a disaster response crisis counselor, and has been a director of school counseling. So a ton of experience in the counseling world, and I'm super excited to pick your brain today, Maggie. How are you doing?
Thank you. Hello, Ben. Hello, everyone. I'm just so excited to be here and to be able to share the things that I've learned and sort of give everybody, maybe a mini tool that they can take out and start navigating and handling some of those challenges with our beautiful children.
Yes, yes. And I know they can come across in so many different ways, but that's why I'm excited to share around social emotional learning. I think it encompasses a lot. Maggie, would you do us a favor and just like
Mhm.
in your own words, like explain what social emotional learning is and like why it's helpful, why it's important?
Absolutely. And since we have the learning piece in there, we have to look at it from an educational point of view, which is wonderful because we're all growing and learning. So basically identify it as teaching children, sometimes even ourselves, how to
Mm-hmm.
identify, manage, and navigate emotions. The
Mm-hmm.
same way we might do with math, the same way we might do with grammar, right? We have to know what they are first, what they mean to us, and figure out ways how to apply them and then manage them, and they might go awry. Or even when they're positive, we have to manage positive and challenging emotions. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
about navigating things and identifying them during our interactions with ourselves and with the community and other people around us.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Maggie. And I really do appreciate how you added in there, like being able to even manage like the positive emotions. Like we do a lot of work with like getting kids like really excited to boost the excitement, engagement, and enjoyment of social emotional learning. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's like we're too hyped, and I even go back to my time as like a basketball player, like getting way too hyped before a game and then like not performing at my best. So I just appreciated that you added that piece in there because it can be both ends of the spectrum can get a little bit um how do you say like
Intense.
overwhelming, even intense. I
Yes,
love
and,
that.
and thank you for. I actually just got a chill because I think educators, when you hear SEL, they're like, "Oh, great, another class, oh this, oh that." So I think putting the positive in there is so important because you can look at if someone like a child loves you, they want to hug you, they want to kiss you, but they can't do that all the time. They can't do that with a stranger. They can't do that with a friend. And the same. So
Mhm.
we already have the toolkit. We know how to teach our children how to love, how to show affection, how to be patient, how to be gentle. But we don't necessarily teach them how to manage the challenging behaviors. But
Mm.
it's empowering. When you see, your 2-year-old granddaughter run up and say, Mimi, and give you a hug and a kiss, like that's the world. But I
Mhm.
also want her to be able to say, oh, Mimi, I'm a little sad because my fish died.
Mm.
I think it's
Yeah.
important that children learn both, right? We can't learn
Mhm.
addition without subtraction. We can't learn
Ooh.
multiplication without division. So when we normalize this, right, we empower our children, and some of us as adults still are working on it.
Mhm.
And I think we need to normalize that this is a process.
Mhm.
We navigate through whatever life brings us at 2, 10, 20, 50, 100. And to be open to that is, to me, really empowering. It's not finite. It doesn't end. And it shouldn't
Yeah.
end. So
Mhm.
I get a little
Constant.
excited about this.
Yeah, yeah, I can tell. And that's why I'm so happy to have you here today. You mentioned the toolbox, and you also mentioned like one of the first steps of being able to identify like those
Yes.
emotions and label them. How can parents help young children or even, teenagers, even we're working with a
Mm-hmm.
wide spectrum of people here. Like, how can
Mm-hmm.
we help?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the first step is learning ourselves.
Hmm.
Always model what you expect. So maybe sitting down in a non-chaotic moment, reflecting, what does mad mean to me? What does sad mean to me? What does happy mean to me? What is delighted, excited? All of the words. I've done this with 5-year-olds, just throwing out a bunch of words in a non-chaotic time. We might read a
Hmm.
book. And then what we do is we pull out the words and we dissect them. So I sometimes there's bigger words than those little words. So I'm angry. Right? I don't know what angry means to you. So
Hmm.
we pull it apart. Well, I'm disappointed. I'm scared. I'm tired. And then for
Hmm.
children, sometimes, and even adults, it's hard to use the word. So we teach them how to project it onto something. It might be a color. It might be an animal. It might be an object. I remember the first time I did this with a 4-year-old, and I gave him a color rainbow. And I said, this is your rainbow. It's not mine. It's our rainbow of feelings. And we talked about all the feelings he identified. I didn't give them to him. He picked colors that surprised me, because there's no right or wrong when it comes to your perception. And I remember him picking color, and it was opposite of what the norm might be. He picked red for love instead of anger.
Right.
You know, he picked orange for nice instead of maybe yellow. But it opens up the this is a 3-session exercise, and I was just so I was so impacted by him and impressed. And then what we did was we actually made a piece of paper with the color blot and then the word and then maybe a picture of what a face might look like. So when he has those challenging moments, he gets frustrated. A lot of children get frustrated. That's why they have tantrums. They cannot articulate what they're feeling. And mom would just get the piece of paper and just say, point to it. And then they had set up some skills, some options to teach him how to manage it. Yes. So that the people around him can learn how to manage it. But it's so empowering for a little person to say, I need to go to my quiet corner. I need to hug my teddy bear. I need to sit on the deck for a minute. I need to go under my blanket in the dark. I mean, to hear a 4 or 5-year-old say that, as adults, some of us still can't do that.
Right.
So really projecting it onto an object or color or even a smell. We've talked about their favorite smells, you know, especially some of our highly sensitive children. I think it's a superpower. And that's something, you know, we also work on the superpowers, which I'm sure you're aware of. But when you're highly sensitive to things, that means that you appreciate them, you value them. So let's use them as tools. Texture sometimes. Children walk around with a little cut of their favorite blankie instead of fidget toys. Fidget toys aren't always the best thing. Or we explain to mom and dad that the texture of jeans is uncomfortable. That's why they fidget. Let them pick their own clothes, their own socks. It's amazingly powerful. We get to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Give them that, empower them in that way as well. You know, I want to hit on one thing, because one thing that's going to accompany this podcast is a blog article, and we'll be able to share links even in the description of this video. Like, is there any website, or maybe even you have like a teacher pay teacher, or, you know, anything like that where they could find some of those different like rainbows or those word bank, those emotional word bank sort of things that might be helpful that you mentioned?
So I'm so glad you asked, because one of the things that I have valued the most, I've actually become a nurtured heart approach trainer. And ironically, I think some of the concepts I had already been implementing in my practice and just didn't realize what they were called. So I would highly encourage anyone, educators, you know, teachers, coaches, you just look up Nurtured Heart Approach, and they have so many free resources there. It's almost overwhelming, but I would say be as specific as possible. How do I manage this? How can I help this? And some of the concepts are so simple, like reset, right? What does a reset mean? You're a coach. You say, team, reset, right? We teach children how to reset, and really giving children, students, you know, people in our relationship, the opportunity to reset is actually an act of love, because it's saying, I'm giving you forgiveness. I'm not like, we're not going to forget it. You know, we want to learn and grow. But in this moment, I love you enough to forgive you so we can pivot and move forward and not get stuck here. Doesn't mean we don't revisit. It doesn't mean we don't address it. But we are taking the opportunity to really be loving and forgiving. And doesn't that build relationships?
For sure.
That's like feeding that garden. You know, when I did workshops, I always had a theme every year. And one of my favorites was growing your SEL garden. And we talked about, I'm a gardener. We talked about how being, you know, a sensitive, not just informed, a sensitive community, a sensitive family, a sensitive workplace starts with a seed, but you have to prep the soil. You have to do all these beautiful things until it blossoms and fruit. And the beautiful thing is, after it fruits, you still can cultivate those seeds and keep it going. Keep it going. So we kind of try to make it simple, things that people can understand. It's not that much work. So when teachers say, oh, here we go again, so, but it really shouldn't be a class. It should just be the way that we are. It should be infused in our curriculum. We want to give the children and ourselves as adults tools to handle challenges. And if we need to take a step to the side to do something private or do something in a group, that's fine. It should just be the norm.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
That's
Like
the
in your
goal.
home, so
Yeah.
good morning, good night, I love you, I forgive you, that hurt my feelings. Really, the
Hmm.
classroom to me, and I always explain this to my students, this is your mini home. So
Hmm.
let's look at education as an opportunity to love and home and shelter children because their
Hmm.
parents can't at the moment because either
Yep.
they're working at home. And that's not just about a curriculum.
Mm-mm.
It's really not. It's about character. It's about love. It's about growing. It's about
Hmm.
expanding and looking at the world as this beautiful, amazing place that might have
Hmm.
some rocks in it, might have some
Hmm.
cracks in it, might have a rainy day, but flipping all those little challenges into highlights.
Yeah. And I love you broke that down for me a little bit in our pre-conversation to this, the challenges and highlights versus good and bad things. I think those little kind of tidbits of language and perspective really go a long way. Like
Mm-hmm,
you said, it's those simple things that can
mm-hmm,
really make a big difference. I kind of want to rewind back to something you said earlier about our superpowers. You were
mm.
like, yeah, can you just like break down what those are? And yeah, just let us know.
Yes, I love this. So, in education and mental health, there's always a label. I hate to call them, classifications or diagnosis. That I'm uncomfortable with that. So it's
Hmm.
really about learning everybody's nuances, right? Their strengths, their challenges, their superpowers. And I do a lot of ADHD coaching, and I'm still uncomfortable using the term, but I have to. Neurodiversity, whatever it is. I just say our brain works differently the way our body does. We're
Yeah.
not judging. We have to
Hmm.
learn our strengths and figure out how to make them stronger and our
Hmm.
challenges and try to either turn them around or grow from them. So one of
Hmm.
my favorite conversations with children when they say, "Oh, I have ADHD," I'm like, "What does that mean? Where is it?
Hmm.
Show me it in your hands." I try to put something concrete, and they're like, "I don't actually know what that means." So, well, how do you know you
Hmm.
have it? How do you know it's something that's not good to have? So
Hmm.
we talk about, usually it's boys at this point, which is
Hmm.
interesting. We talk about the diagnosis and all the strategy. We talk about Superman. I said, "Tell me about Superman." "Oh, well, he flies around saving the day." And yeah, but what did he do when he wasn't flying around? He was in an office with glasses and a suit. And I said, "Interesting." And we talked about what's it like to be a hero, to see a hero, to think about a hero. So how do you think he feels when he can't be a hero? When he has
Hmm.
to be quiet, when he has to sit still, when he can't fix something. So we talk about what they feel
Hmm.
like when they feel empowered with some of these attributes, but the world around them doesn't. And I
Hmm.
said, what if Superman came into school today and he started flying around? What would happen to him? Their eyes get so big. So does that not make him a hero? Does that not make him special?
Hmm.
But he has to learn how to navigate his superpower so that it works
Hmm.
within the world around him. And it's
Hmm.
challenging when you're a little person. Everybody thinks you have little thoughts and little feelings, but that's not true. But
Hmm.
we have to figure out a way to guide you to teach you when you can fly and to
Hmm.
teach you that sometimes you can't fly because it's not safe. It may not fit the situation.
Yeah.
It may impact the other people around you. But part of that superpower is learning when you can and cannot use it.
Hmm. I love it
And
so
then we delve
much.
into what their specific superpowers are. Like
Hmm.
moms. So many moms, they multitask. That's wonderful when you have to survive. But when it gets time to do other things, it's very hard to focus because your
Hmm.
brain is wired to see six different things. So sometimes, yeah, you're like, I have to manage all these. Sometimes you have to put that superpower on the shelf or maybe
Hmm.
soften it a little bit or quiet
Hmm.
it down a little bit because
Hmm.
Superman still needs to rest too.
Yeah. Oh, I love that metaphor so much and how it you could just tell right there with your experience
Mm-hmm.
how many
Mm-hmm.
different opportunities it has for different types of people, that have ADHD, that moms with,
Mm-hmm.
their ability to multitask. I just love the like
Mm-hmm.
breadth that simple metaphor is able to cover and like really empower people with that mindset. Like, yeah, how do I
Mm-hmm.
navigate this? Thank you so
Sure.
much for breaking down
Yeah.
the superpower. And that reframe is just such a powerful one. I know it is
Mm-hmm.
for kids, for
Mm-hmm.
parents, like such a
Mm-hmm.
healthy one too. Um, okay, I have another question for you. Headed
Okay.
down the list here.
That's
Um,
okay.
what techniques can parents use to encourage positive behavior and reduce
Mm-hmm.
tantrums or
Mm-hmm.
outbursts in kids?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's a few different ones. Again, knowing your children, but sometimes I just say pick one that's easier for you. because if I give you something that's complicated, you're not going to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
what I probably would do is ask the parent to think about what helps them, right?
Mm.
And then try that because they're probably an expert at it. It may or
Mm-hmm.
may not work because our children are different. They're not always extensions of us. And then if something doesn't work, we flip the switch. Maybe we ask the child. We observe them when they're calm, when they're quiet, when they're rested. I think the simplest thing when I'm starting out, if I'm stepping into an acute situation, is identifying a safe place for the child
Mm.
and asking them. You have a bedroom, you have a couch. What are things that make you feel comfy and cozy? I love comfy cozy. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's universal. And they'll talk about maybe a blanket or a pillow or a sleeping bag. And then I talk to the parents about, well, where do you go? Where's your respite place? And it usually is an environment that's
Mm-hmm.
calm and surrounded by things that they love and they're nurturing. I say, what if your child had a place to go? What if they had a place where they can reset, they could decompress, and sometimes I walk the adults through what did it feel like to come home that day and surround yourself with warm blanket and tea?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be an amazing gift to give your child?
Mm.
And then when we empower the child with understanding how they have a right to have a cozy, comfy space, to reset, to decompress, then the beauty is that they ask for it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we know as adults, sometimes adults can't do that. Imagining, your little girl had it. Say, Mommy, can I just have a blanket and a cup of tea? Oh. So
Yes.
that's one. The other is, and I know people find this a little challenging, we don't feed the monster. We don't give the negative, challenging behaviors attention. We
Mm.
know sometimes children are just seeking attention.
Mm-hmm.
They might be confused. They might be overwhelmed, literally. And parents can see this working if they look into the nurtured heart. And I'm not here advocating, subscribing to this, but it works. There's a video where a toddler's crying. We've all seen the tantrums. And
Mm-hmm.
the parent walks away. Child stops. Parent comes back. They start crying. Parent walks away for a longer period of time. The child crawls around the corner of the wall, peeks, goes like this, and then the parent comes back and the child acts up again. So
Mm-hmm.
really we want to identify, those positive behaviors, the ones that highlight our children's strengths, and feed them, and not in a way that's just like good job. I don't like the word good and bad. I
Mm-hmm.
really appreciated the way that you gave your sister her coat instead of saying
Mm-hmm.
thank you for the help. It should be very personal. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
if you're complimenting someone, or even if you're having a conversation, it should follow up with a why. So there's substance to it, so they can
Mm-hmm.
process it. When I hear parents say, why don't you focus? Why don't you focus? It's just, you want them to focus on what you want them to focus on in the moment. I understand that. But when you say, why can't you focus? You're telling your child they have no ability to focus.
Mm.
Many children have the ability to focus on many things. But in this moment, Jonathan, I need you to be here with me right now. Look at me right now. In this moment, this is what we need to focus on.
Mm.
The eye contact, the respect for the space. But many
Mm-hmm.
times, if you watch parents, and I've been guilty of it, I'll call a child's name and then spit out the plethora of instructions. They don't hear me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my own son now, who's about to become a father, saying, Mom, I don't hear you. I said, how could you not hear me? He said, I've heard my name so many times
Mm.
that we get used to it, like things out in
Mm-hmm.
the environment. He actually told me, I mean, he was much younger and I was still in the beginning of her, Mom, say my name like nobody else says it. I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful gift. So I
Yeah.
enunciated a little different. He said, then wait 3 seconds. Say it again. If I don't answer you, then you can come looking for me. But that will trigger hearing my name in a different way from the teachers, the coaches, all the people who are mad and angry at me. It's going to shift
Mm.
the way I hear my name. And I want my children's
Wow.
name to sound beautiful.
Wow.
We know when we're in danger and they're in trouble, we say the first and middle name, sometimes the last name.
Right.
And it just shifted my perspective. One of his name and
Mm-hmm.
how to approach, getting his attention to me. It's my job really to gain his attention and to
Mm.
harness it. It's not his. It's
Mm.
not. It's the teachers. It's the parents. So figuring out a way to do that, I think is really empowering for anyone in the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for breaking that down. And I really appreciate that last piece of the being able to grab the attention, because their attention is being pulled in so many different directions, as is our attention, and it can be really challenging to break out of whatever cycle that is, to be present, to focus. So getting creative, getting curious with what's going to help. And I really also love just the question asking of these younger people. Like they know they might need that blanket and that cup of tea, or maybe we're getting curious on like those questions that you were asking earlier around like what color is it. The questions seem to be a powerful theme throughout multiple of these questions. So just wanted to highlight that. I know you mentioned like parents being able to model these things, learning how to do it themselves, and being curious with yourself. What are those things when I'm having a tantrum that I am a master at that I can share? Oh, I don't really have anything. Okay, that's room for me to grow and learn, and develop that skill set. Like, uh, what are some of those healthy habits that you recognize in parents, families, or even teachers, that help to raise mentally healthy and resilient kids?
Well, I love that you asked, and I love that you threw the word resilient, because
Mm-hmm.
that is really the goal, right? To kind of hand our children these tools so that they can, I say roots to grow and wings to fly. Our goal is
Ooh.
not for them to stay home,
Mm-hmm.
and then we get to relish in all the beauty that's out there. So, sometimes it's the basics, because again, the conversation is not just about the kids. And I'll ask them, when you're angry, frustrated, tired, scared, where do you go? What do you do? Explain to me what that looks like and feels like. And then we apply it to the child. So sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
concrete things. And I did a workshop once with parents, and I was committed to not buying anything. Nothing that I brought with them was store bought at the time. I literally took things from my own home and created a little, I have a Zen den, but a corner, a mini
Mm.
Zen den. And parents actually laid on the gymnasium floor to do it. And I
Love
said,
it.
I want you to know there's nothing here that I went to the store and bought. I literally just repurposed things in my own house.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's that simple. And
Yeah.
if we give the children places and spaces like that, it's not their bedroom. It's very rarely ever their bedroom. There's too much
Mm.
stimulation, and that's a place to sleep. Sleep and rest are two different things.
Mm.
And again, articulating, I remember as a younger mom saying, I need a moment, I need a moment. That's terrifying to a child. That's mini abandonment in their perspective.
Mm.
Mommy had a really hard day. She has a little bit of a headache. I need to have some quiet time with my music. Okay, mommy. And then what's interesting is
Mm-hmm.
as you make it a norm, self-care, your children, it's ironic when they notice something, mommy, why don't you go in your comfy, cozy corner? Would you
Right.
like a cup of tea?
Mm-hmm.
So they're validating the value of that. And
Mm-hmm.
then you, in turn, enable them and empower them with their own. Um, I had one student who just couldn't do work in their own house. So they never did their homework.
Mm.
And I said, well, where do you like to be? And he was like, in the car ride. I said, okay. It's about 15, 20-minute car ride. Have you ever thought about doing your work in the car? Can I? I said, I don't know. Can you?
Right.
Can you take out a book or a pencil? And he was confused because the teachers call it homework.
Right. Wow.
So it's a reframe. When I was a
Yeah.
teacher, there was no homework. There was practice.
Mm.
Doesn't matter where you practice, as long as you
Mm-hmm.
do. And if
Mm-hmm.
we can get through what we need to do, you always have 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the lesson. Do it after school, do it before school, do it at lunch, do it in the bathtub. It's practice.
Right.
So when we take out that home piece, tremendous paradigm shift, met
Mm-hmm.
with the mom, and then what she would do is she would extend the driving time for 10 minutes every day. Now, not every parent can do that, but the
Right.
concept is still there. Find out from them what works and figure
Right.
out a way to let it work for them. And
Mm-hmm.
she found when the child was in that zone of feeling empowered and successful, they were then able to have conversations with those extra few minutes. Well, what was exciting to you? What surprised you about the book? What math problem was the hardest and how did you get over it? Not
Mm-hmm.
how was your day? How do you feel? The short and sweet things.
Right.
So really tapping into opportunities like that. Sometimes it is an environmental thing. Sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, not always the best.
Yeah.
The hard chair, I don't know about you, but sitting in a hard chair, it's not my thing.
Yeah.
There's
It will.
pillows, there's blankets. And, I mean, when I had a classroom, I told the kids, I don't care where you sit, just sit comfortably. Sit on the floor, bring a blanket, bring a
Mm-hmm.
pillow. I worked in the inner city when I started teaching. We had these radiator leveled with the windows. I said, "Do you want to bring a pillow and a blanket? pop up there. As long as
Right.
you're engaged, it
Uh-huh.
doesn't matter to me how you sit.
Yeah. That's a
Really,
beautiful.
it's not about discipline, it's about self-regulation. There's a
Mhm.
difference.
Yeah, and what works for the individual is going to be so different. And I think one thing that's being highlighted for me throughout this whole conversation, kind of as we wrap things up here, is that the kid is this individual that has these unique needs, and it can be really overwhelming as a teacher, especially in a classroom with 20, 25 kids, to be able to sit down and meet all those needs. So one, this conversation is highlighting the support of a counselor, of a coach, of a whoever is kind of in tune, a SEL
Mm-hmm.
coordinator, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
role or specific thing is, to be able to tap into those and really help kids have a sit down. But
Mm-hmm.
also like being open for not like blaming the kid or like pointing the finger, like you mentioned earlier, like you can't keep focused. It's like, hey, what's going to help you focus? What helps you focus? When are you
Mm-hmm.
focused, and how can we bring some of that into this situation, this environment, this setting?
Mm-hmm.
And I just really appreciate you pointing that out, because I come from a family of educators. My grandma was a kindergarten teacher. My mom was a kindergarten teacher. My sister is a music teacher. My wife's a teacher.
Oh,
So like,
interesting.
so I get all the conversations, and with all the love that they have for the kids, with all the love that they have for their profession and all their desire to grow, it can be very easy to get into one of those situations where it's like, these kids just can't focus. These kids just can't figure it out. And it's like, okay, we truly, like you mentioned with the community and planting those seeds and nourishing them, the SEL garden, like it's those
Mm-hmm.
little baby steps day
Mm-hmm.
in, day out that are going to help to grow this. So I just
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you breaking that down for us today, Maggie.
Or
Um,
as course.
is
And as
there,
educators, we think we're responsible for it. They're not focusing. They're not focusing. And I take that somewhat personally, and I'm thinking, well, I must not be doing something right. I'm not
mm,
engaging them enough. It's like
mm-hmm,
we mentioned the garden. Well, cucumbers and potatoes and dandelions and marigolds and green beans, they might be in the same garden, but their needs are different. We
mm,
don't throw away the green beans because they need extra water. We don't throw away the tomatoes because we have to weed them. We figure it out.
mm,
And then we
mm.
have this beautiful bounty that works together in this amazing salad, if you will.
Yes. Oh, I love it so much. Maggie, thank you so much once again for your time today.
My
Is
pleasure.
is there a place where you like to connect with people, where people can find you and reach out with questions or even for support?
Yeah, actually, they can. My biggest way to get in touch with me is probably through Psychology Today. My site is there.
Okay.
My practice, or I should say, my life, because there's so many aspects to it. It's Hard to Heal LLC. They can also search that. Um, one of I think this is fun. You're a coach. I was a coach. So when you teach something and you see it implemented, and then you see them grow and learn and then apply it and teach other people. So I get so excited when I have the opportunity to work with a family. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really really is a coaching model, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I have clients for years, and I'm humbled by them. But I tell them I'm not creating anything. I didn't do
Mm-hmm.
anything. I just held up the mirror so you could
Mm-hmm.
see what was like Dorothy, it was in there all along. And
Right.
I think using that model also like empowers people. So even if you're
For
not
sure.
there, like the coach isn't on the court, the
Mm-hmm.
coach is in the ear, the coach is in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it sort of empowers everybody to do. So yeah, they can look up on Psychology Today. I'm on one of the counseling, forms. Well Night is another way, but I prefer a little bit more personal thing. If they want to reach out through that, I would love to help. I'm also do this with schools, coaching. I love workshops with parents are the best
Awesome.
because I know
Awesome.
sometimes our educators are overwhelmed, and if I can give a parent a
Mm-hmm.
little taste, they come to the administrators or teachers, say, listen, let's do this. I want to do this in my
Mm-hmm.
home. What if we did this in the classroom, and then we did it in other
Yeah.
homes, So
Yeah.
I welcome
Thank
the
you.
opportunity.
We'll drop those links in our descriptions and
Perfect.
at the end of the blog article, so make it real easy for all the listeners out there. For everybody that's
Yeah.
listening, thank you for your time. We hope that you found some of this stuff like helpful. I know I did. I'm learning, I'm growing. And so Maggie, once again, thank you for sharing your knowledge, your passion, and your time with us today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Ben. Thank you so much.